hopefully you've all had a chance to read the disclaimer, a word from our friendly folks at compliance, and you've memorized that. So we'll get into our, it's going to advance. There we go. All right, so we did the introduction, so that's done. But the rest of the time, I really want to start off with just a higher level view of what we're seeing in the executive benefit marketplace. As Anthony mentioned, I'm a little newer to Crump. I've been on the advanced sales team for about 2.5 years, but I've been in the business for more than 35. Most of my time working with small business owners, family-owned businesses, farms, doing succession planning, benefit planning, and estate planning for them. So I've seen a lot of things. And so we want to share just what we're seeing in the marketplace today, and then we'll get into the case study. And this is probably the most fun I've had on a case in my career. And so we'll go through all of that. And then at the end, I've got some questions that you can ask business owners to help identify opportunities for you. And then we'll definitely leave time for questions. But I'd like to keep this informal, so I don't mind if people interrupt and have questions or comments about anything that I'm talking about. So let's get into it. So what are the executive benefit strategies that we're seeing today? So almost every business owner I've talked to through my career, and in surveys that are done by the SBA and the Chambers of Commerce and some insurance companies, every business owner, one of the top concerns is, how do I really attract and keep good employees, right? And oftentimes clients hear about things like deferred compensation or golden handcuffs to reward key employees, and they don't really understand exactly how those work and what some of the alternatives are. So that's where I see where you, with our support, can be of great value to those business owner clients to help them understand the options and figure out what the best one for them might be. So when we're looking at a potential client, these are just some of the factors that we want to look at. How the business is set up, who are we looking to benefit? Very importantly, that third one, is a current tax deduction today the most important objective for that employer? Because that'll drive a lot of our design decisions. How much admin work do we need to get involved with? How much control does the business owner want? And is cost recovery something that's really important to them? So, besides the facts about the business, these objectives are really the base for what we need to design the best plan. So I know there's a ton of information on here. This is a piece that we have. I'm happy to send this out. But this just kind of lists some of the executive benefit plans that involve life insurance, from on the left-hand side, the most simple, moving to the right, getting into the more complex. So as I said, I'm sticking high level today, but I'm happy to talk in a separate meeting about any of these particular benefit designs. So let's start with the simple one. I think executive bonus plans kind of get overlooked a little bit because they are so simple, and I love simple when we can do it. But the marketplace we're looking for, and any type of business, if it's a non-owner employee, whether it's an S Corp, a partnership, LLC, that doesn't matter. C corporations, owners, there's some interesting things we can do there. Big one, clients that want a current tax deduction and clients that want simplicity and ease of administration. So the bonus plan, pretty simple. Anthony's one of my key employees. I want to give him a special benefit, so I agree to pay a life insurance premium for a policy that he owns. That premium payment's going to be deductible to me. It's going to be taxable income to Anthony. If I really want to be generous, I can increase the bonus so that it covers all of the taxes and the life insurance premium, so it's tax neutral to Anthony. And if I want to put a little bit of a handcuff on it, I can restrict his access to cash value for a period of time, kind of like a vesting schedule. But Anthony owns the policy. He names a beneficiary. He gets all the benefits of permanent life insurance. So when he gets toward retirement, the restriction is removed. He can do with that policy anything that he wants, turn it into lifetime income, surrender it if he wants to, keep the death benefit. It's his policy. I've just paid the premiums for him because I want him to stick around. There's kind of a twist now with these. You're probably familiar with the hybrid or linked benefit life and long-term care policies. So when we're looking, especially for clients, I mean, I'm in my 60s, so buying a policy today with the idea of cash value is probably not all that exciting. There's just not enough time to build up a lot of cash value. But long-term care benefits, those will get my attention, right? So With the executive bonus plans, I can buy this for Anthony. I'm still going to deduct 100% of the premium, but Anthony only has to pay tax on the life insurance portion. So it has to be a very specific long-term care rider that has the premiums for the long-term care portion of it have to be separately identified. But Anthony, because it's treated as long-term care, doesn't have to pay income tax on the portion of the premiums that goes toward the long-term care. So that's a great tax benefit for an employee in the right circumstances. So we really love adding these on for slightly older folks. All right, we'll switch to the next one I want to talk about, split dollar. It's alive and well. Some people in prior years when the regulations were tightened up a little bit, people thought split dollar might go away. But we think it's a very viable strategy and we do a ton of it. So here again, we're looking for non-owner employees of any business type, C corporation owners. This is a great deal. We'll talk a little more about that. And interestingly, nonprofit executives. If you work with any nonprofits, there's some neat things that we can do with split dollar planning for them. So the first one is loan regime split dollar. Again, it's fairly simple. I'm going to pay the premiums on a policy that Anthony owns. We're going to treat those as loans from the business to Anthony. Right? We don't need collateral because the life insurance policy is going to be the collateral. Now, Anthony, there has to be an interest component, and the rates are set by the IRS. Most of the time in the design, I'm going to forgive the interest payment to Anthony every year. That interest forgiveness becomes taxable income. So Anthony's going to pay tax on the interest on the premium loans. Eventually, we'll talk about how we're going to get the full benefit of the policy out to him. But this is how it works in a nutshell. For those of you that like flowcharts, again, this is kind of the same information, but Anthony owns the policy. I'm loaning him money. And what happens if he dies prematurely? The business gets paid back. There's a collateral assignment. And then his beneficiary receives the rest of the death benefit income tax free because it's life insurance. But the real benefit, the real reason I'm doing this is I want to give Anthony some incentives to stay to age 65 or whatever. So what we're going to do, if he stays, then I'll forgive the loan. Now, again, that loan forgiveness, that is taxable income. So Anthony could pay it from outside funds if he wanted to pay the tax that way. Or since we typically use overfunded permanent life insurance policies, there's generally enough cash value for Anthony to take a withdrawal up and it's tax-free because it's not going to go over his basis. And he uses money from the cash value to pay the tax that he has to pay. And then now he has the policy free and clear. I cancel the collateral assignment, and he, again, has permanent life insurance. He can do whatever he wants with it. So this can be a really, really nice benefit plan in the right circumstances. This interesting benefit for C corporations, and we're seeing more and more businesses operating now as C corporations because of the tax rules, the tax law change that dropped the corporate rate down to 21%. Some states, of course, have their own tax on top of that, but that's a very, very low tax rate. So C corporations got kind of a raise in that fashion because they're paying less taxes. But the only two ways that the business owner can get money out of the corporation, either pay themselves more W-2 or pay it out in the form of dividends, which might be more favorably taxed to the individual, but aren't deductible for the business. So the loan from a corporation to a shareholder or to the shareholder's trust, that's not taxable income to the business owner employee. So we can get money out of the corporation that's only been taxed at 21% and avoid the double taxation, the personal level. And so our idea is, hey, let's use dollars that have been taxed the least to pay the premiums for insurance that will benefit personally. And again, loans can be made to the individual owner, or if he set up a life insurance trust to own a policy, the business can make loans to the trust. And again, there's the same interest rules have to be taken into account, but this is a great way to use corporate dollars. The nonprofit world. So it's interesting. The last couple of tax bills have really restricted the amounts of compensation that nonprofits can pay to top executives. So there's an excise tax for comp over $1 million, and it's paid by the nonprofit, not by the employee. However, a loan, excuse me, is not compensation. So you see the list of college coaches on there. All of these college coaches have or had loan regime split dollar plans through the universities. Jim Harbaugh is the one everybody, I think, is more familiar with. When he left and went to the Los Angeles Chargers, there had to be some settlement to pay off the loan to the University of Michigan. But these universities are spending millions of dollars in premiums to cover these coaches, and Crump was involved with Dawn Staley and Dabo Swinney, their policies that were done through Clemson and the University of South Carolina. So this is a really great way for nonprofits who are competing with private employers and maybe cannot offer the same salaries as private employers, but they can offer some benefits like this to help attract those really, really key employees. You just have to be careful. There are many states, and those are the ones in the lightest shade, that do not allow nonprofits to make loans to executives. I'm in New York State, so of course, New York State restricts just about everything we want to do. So, but there are a bunch of states that don't. So you just have to be careful. If you have someone in one of those states that have some restrictions, you need to get with a local attorney there who knows the nonprofit rules there. They can get pretty complex, but in the right circumstances, this can work really, really great. The next one, endorsement, different type of split dollar, but as an alternative to traditional deferred compensation. And I apologize. I'm going fairly quickly through these because I want to spend more time on the case study, but this is kind of sets the stage for what we did with the case study. So if you're familiar with the deferred compensation world, you've probably heard of the IRS code 409A. It's a very complex code that covers deferred compensation regulations. And if you violate the rules, the penalties are pretty severe. So when you put in this kind of traditional deferred comp, you have to hire a third-party administrator like you do for your 401k or profit sharing plan, just because of the rules being very, very complex. So a lot of smaller employers, it's hard for them to put in these type of plans and compete with larger employers because the costs just get to be prohibitive. So we're always looking for simpler alternatives if we can do it. And there's a very unique exception in Code 409A that allows us to do this. So we set up a plan that has a policy owned by the business. Company owns it, they pay the premiums. And the business basically, if we do this for Anthony, I own the life insurance policy as the employer. I'm going to endorse some of the death benefit over to Anthony, and he can name a personal beneficiary. Typically, the business is going to be entitled to the greater of cash values or premiums paid. Anthony's beneficiaries get the rest. He has to pay a little bit of a rental charge, we call it. If you've been in the world for a while, the old PS 58 type costs. But these are charges that he is taxed on based on term rates. So it's a fairly low cost for younger folks. It might get a little higher as you get older. But the exception is we have to distribute the policy to Anthony within 2.5 months of him separating from service. And this way it's not called deferred compensation. And I'll get into a little bit more of that when we talk about the case study. And there is pretty minimal administration to it. So again, in flowchart form, while he's employed, we have this policy in place, and the business will get back some of the death benefit. His beneficiary gets the rest. And like the loan regime split dollar, we want to give Anthony some incentives to stay. So if he agrees and he stays and fulfills his promise, we'll distribute the policy to him at the time of retirement. He is taxed on what's called the fair market value, close to the cash value. And just like in the loan design, we're overfunding policies. So it's typical he will take a withdrawal out of the life insurance to pay the tax. And again, now he's got the permanent life insurance policy, and he's ready to go with it. So that's kind of the base of it. And let's get into the case study. As I said, this was some of the most fun that I've had in my career, how this all came together. But before I get into more of the details, the way this started out was the client heard about something. He heard about something called corporate-owned life insurance, sometimes called COLI. And I don't know if this has happened to you. It's happened to me several times in my career, but sometimes clients hear about a concept and they call their advisor and said, hey, I heard about this thing called such and such. Is this something that I should do? And usually it's one of two things. Either it's a good concept, but just doesn't fit their particular situation, or it's something that just got put on the IRS's top 10 enforcement list for, things that try to push the envelope a little bit. But every once in a while, clients hear about something and it turns out to be just the perfect situation for them. So having said all that to set things up, this was a very successful owner of a couple of car dealerships. He's second generation owner. And again, he heard about Coley from another car dealer that he knows very, very well. And so he talked to his family office that he worked with, and our advisor who works with Crump had a relationship with that family office. So the family office called the Crump advisor. Crump advisor called his Anthony, who then called the advanced sales department, and I was the one who was able to get involved with the case. But the most important objective for this business owner, and this is where we really had to drill down. So I heard about Coley. Okay, what did you hear about it? And he said, well, it's life insurance that I can own as the employer, and I get the death benefit to cover key employees. Okay, why are you thinking about doing this? He says, well, I think it's a great way to use corporate dollars. And he was kind of going on and on. And he said, well, but what's the ultimate benefit? What's the ultimate thing you're looking to do? And he said, well, I'm second generation owner. I want this business to be third and fourth generation if possible. My kids are old enough now, they're in the business, but they're not ready to run it yet. If something happens to me, I need these key employees to be here to help my kids take over and keep the business successful. Because if something happens to me and these folks all decide to leave because they don't think my kids are going to be able to run this business, then it will go out of business. And that's the most important thing. And the other part of that was, he says, I read about something like phantom stock or other type of ways to give them what looks like ownership, but isn't ownership, but I don't want to go down that road. It looks too complex. I don't want to do that. But these folks are key, but they're never going to be owners, right? My kids and grandkids are going to be the owners. And he had done his succession plan. His estate plan was up to date. He had a lot of second to die life insurance. So he was pretty well set up. He said, this is what I want to do. So we started getting into the plan, and some of his objectives, how can I put this, wouldn't really be compliant with tax law, the way he wanted to do things. So we had to kind of talk through things. So he said what he really wanted to provide was incentives to stay long term. So we started talking about deferred compensation. So here's how deferred compensation works. You promise to pay them a retirement benefit if they stay for a certain period of time, and you informally fund that with life insurance that you own on those employees. He's like, oh, that's great. He says, so when I pay them this income, do they have to pay tax on it? I said, well, yeah, it's deferred compensation. So yes, they're paying income tax. Well, no, I don't like that. I'm not going to do that. I want them to have tax-free income. So let me skip forward here to the thing. So here's what he wanted, that tax-free income. He wanted them to get some death benefit for the employees' families. He thought that was important. So we said, okay, if you want them to get tax-free income, we then talked about that endorsement split dollar that I just mentioned, where he'd own the insurance while they worked there. And if they stayed till a certain age, he'd distribute the policy out and they could take tax-free income from it. And we said that they'd have to pay tax when it comes out, but they'll have lots of cash value. And he said, yeah, I really like that. And they get tax-free income. We said, yep, tax-free income. He says, okay, love that. He says, then when they die, I get all the death benefit, right? I said, no. No, you distributed the policy to them, so the death benefit goes to their beneficiaries. He goes, well, then where's my cost recovery? Well, you get some deduction when you give them the policy, but no, you don't get the death benefit. He says, well, no, don't like that. I have to have cost recovery. He says, what else you got? So one of the advisors asked him, what is your budget for this? How much money, have you set aside? He says, I think somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million a year is what I can safely put into a plan like this. So I just said, you know what, Mr. Prospect, I think we can figure something out. It's up to us to get creative and come back to you with a plan, but I think we could figure something out. So again, these are the goals of what he wanted to do. And he wanted really as little underwriting as possible. He said, I don't want my employees to have to give blood, go through medical exams, all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to do any administrative work for this. I want this as simple and as easy as possible. So looking at all that, we tried to figure out how we could do this. And this is where the team at Crump, I'm part of a team of 8 folks, including 2 attorneys. So I went to one of my colleagues and said, here's what we're thinking about. And these type of plans are done on what's called a list bill. If you've worked in the employee benefit world at all, you'll for their medical, their life, the company gets a bill and all the participants are listed on it, and there's a premium, one single premium payment to pay. So I said to one of my colleagues, I said, you know what, if we do this on a list bill, do we matter if there are 33 names on it or 66 names on it? Does it make any difference? It's like, well, what are you talking about? I said, why don't we just do 2 policies on each person? So we went to one of our insurance carrier partners. I talked to their advanced sales team and gave them the idea, and they said, yeah, that'll work. Let us design, as far as the actual numbers. So we ended up doing this two parts to it. So part one is that we called it deferred bonus. That's the golden handcuff part, right? So 27, we had 33 total key people. 6 of them were in their 60s. And it just, from a cash value, again, not enough time to build up. So the owner did something different for them. But this policy is owned by the dealership. These were designed for cash value growth, right? So minimum death benefit we could possibly get away with. We had 11.1 million total. Each employee had 400,000 that would go to their family if they died while they were working, and they were going to pay a little bit of income tax on that benefit. Vesting was at age 63. That's when he wanted them to have access to it. So if they stayed to age 63, the policy was distributed out to them and they own it free and clear. If the employee left age 62 and 6 months, they didn't get anything. So that was the handcuff part, right? That kept them there. But if they stayed, the gold part of it, they would get that policy. So that was part one. Part two was the key person. That's the cost recovery. So we insured all 33 participants. The dealership is the owner and the beneficiary. No tax deduction for it, but as long as we follow the rules of corporate-owned life insurance, the death benefit, the total of 55.2 million, would be paid income tax-free back to the dealership. It's permanent. The cash value is a balance sheet asset, and the dealership has access to the cash value if they need it. So that was when he said he had to have cost recovery, this was the way that we have actually cost recovery and then some, because that total death benefit there was 55 million. So here's kind of a breakdown of the results. And so we took the roughly 2.6 million of premium. You see it's divided between the golden handcuff part and the key person part. These are designed as 7 pays. They're indexed universal life contracts. So that third line down, the projected deferred bonus, that's the total of all the policies, fair market value when the insured would reach age 63. So once those were all paid out, he had a potential tax deduction of about 1.7 million. Excuse me. So it's a little complex in those rules because he first has to recognize gain in the contract before he distributes it out. And then he deducts the fair market value. So that's the sort of net. On the cost recovery side, like I said, we ended up with significant death benefit there. So he's got 55 million of cost recovery, and his net expenses are going to be somewhere between 16 and 17 million dollars for this. So he wanted cost recovery plus he was looking at, hey, I'm going to spend $2.6 million a year. I could be doing other things with that money.
What's cost recovery? So I see key person. Is that
Yep.
if one of the key employees dies, or how does that actually get recovered? I don't understand.
So the cost recovery, those are just simply policies that the dealership owns on each employee that they will keep forever. So that's the total of the death of the 33 key employees. So eventually the business will recover $55 million income tax free.
Does that affect the amount of insurance those employees can get individually?
It does not, because that's not personal insurance. So the employee on the cost recovery portion, the employee is entitled to none of the death benefit. The 400,000 they got on the deferred bonus side, yes, that would be factored in to personal insurability limits.
Got it. So in this situation, they're doing the 7 pace, they're putting in $12 million, and then when all of these people die is when this 55, or I mean in piecemeal, but they're going to recover
Right.
that 55 million to pay
Yep.
for all this kind of stuff. Okay.
Correct. Yep. So again, he wanted cost recovery with some cost of money factored into that as well. So the last part of this, we got all $66 million of this on a guaranteed issue basis. So absolutely no underwriting for anyone. And our insurance company partner is doing all of the administrative work at no cost to the employer. So every year they will tell the employer how much the value of the bonus side of it, how much each employee has to report, or how much they report to the employee as income. They'll calculate when an employee reaches the age 63 and they're going to distribute, they'll calculate what that taxable amount is. And they're doing all that with no cost. The time that it took was phenomenal in my mind. Now, from first meeting to the client giving the go-ahead to do it was about 5 or 6 months, just because a bunch of, coordinating 5 or 6 different calendars and presenting a lot of information. But once the client signed the paperwork, the insurance company team went down to where the dealerships were located, did all the enrollments, and took that. So it was about a week from employers signing the forms to all the policies being issued. All 50 or all 60 of them that were issued. And then it was about a week later. Within a week, the client had wired the first year premium, paying annually, and a couple days after that, the advisor got paid their commission. So these business cases can take a while to do, but when we're doing multi-life, and it's interesting. This was a fairly large case. All of these concepts work for really any size business. To get guaranteed issue, we typically need 10 people. And most of the insurance companies are looking for the more highly comped, so incomes of 75,000 and above, some like 100,000 and above, and it's more white collar. So these were managers. These were not people that work in the service department or the parts department. These were higher up executives at his 2 very large car dealerships. So,
Tom, could you go back to the previous slide on how much the employer is putting out per year, and then also total? I just wanted to take. I wanted to see if it. You said about 2.5 million that he's paying per year.
Yep.
And then the total. Where's the total after? So 18 million total after the 7 years, and then he's done paying. Is that right?
That's correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, not on a guaranteed issue basis, of course, but these were we use pretty conservative assumptions for the index rate of return, we didn't use the max rate that we're allowed to illustrate. So, but the 7 years, the commitment. So if the rates are better, there's going to be a lot more cash value. We're not going to cut premiums down or, say, well, we can take a year off of it. That's the premium commitment.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll go on to the last slide, so we'll have time for questions. But these are things, when you're talking to any business owner, questions that I always like to ask, what are you doing to attract key people? And what you'll get from a lot of employers is, well, we have a 401k, and I have medical and dental and vision and group life and disability and all that. So I always will then answer, so you're really basically doing nothing more than your competitors are doing, because almost everybody's offering that. What is it that you're doing that's beyond that? And trying to identify key people, ask the owner, if you were out for 6 months, who's taking care of the business while you're gone? Okay, that's a key person. Is there anybody who, if they left for a competitor, is going to be big trouble for your business? Okay, what are you doing to keep them there? Right, so they don't go to a competitor and steal all your customers. And the last one, we didn't talk about this, but almost coming up on 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in June. There was a Supreme Court decision, Connolly versus the United States, that changed the planning for business succession, a certain type of buy-sell agreement. So, I've been telling advisors, just ask, have you looked at your buy-sell agreement considering Connolly? and most of them will not understand what you're asking. I've said to business owners, "Well, you had a buy sell. What do you mean your advisor hasn't asked you about this? This could significantly impact you personally from an estate tax standpoint. So it's definitely worth taking a look at." So those are just some of the questions I think that you can ask to try and identify these opportunities. But again, it really doesn't matter how the business is set up, S Corp, C Corp, LLC, partnership. For employees that aren't owners, any of the benefit plans can work great. If we're dealing with the owner and it's some type of pass through like an S or an LLC, we're a little more limited in what we can do from an executive benefit standpoint because they're typically not treated as employees. But we can still get pretty creative on how we use corporate dollars to do it. So, any type of business situation, our team is here to help, with Anthony and myself, anyone on the advanced sales team. So we're not assigned to territories or to advisors or to folks like Anthony. So anyone on the team can help. We all do point of sale meetings. We're happy to talk to your clients to explain concepts. I mentioned we have 2 attorneys on our team. And while we can't give specific legal advice to clients, our attorneys will get on calls with you, your clients, and your clients' advisors. I mean, sometimes attorneys only want to talk to other attorneys. So our folks will get on calls with you. One of our attorneys has a corporate and business tax background, so is very, very well versed in a lot of this type of stuff. And the great thing about our attorneys is when they get on a call, there isn't a meter that's been turned on to start charging by the hour or by 15 minutes, whatever they do now. But as our attorneys are actually Crump employees, so it's a service that's available to you, and it doesn't cost you or your client anything at all. So, all right, I've gone on long enough, so I will stop there and just ask if anyone has any questions or comments.
Well, I just want to say that I just going through all the slides, like there's so many clients that came into my mind that I will definitely reach out to you, Tom, because there's a lot of scenarios that I understand every case is different, so where they fall in, and that's the exciting news that the partnership with Crump, we have the support, so I'm gonna definitely reach out.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so anybody else with any questions?
I appreciate it, Tom. Let's see, can you go back to the C Corp, LLC, S Corp, and talk a little bit about where everybody can identify some of the best potential client base in their book of business? Kind of like maybe just a top level, these are some clients to think about. I think that'll help everybody. I know everybody's got them in their book or their client base, but I think that'll help everybody kind of identify where to look. Oh, and then also maybe a couple of the things to gather. That way, once they gather that from the client, then they can bring it to Miriam, myself, Anthony, you, Tom, and just talk about, hey, would this be something in this client base that would work well for?
The census, what do you like to get started?
Yeah, so let me answer that question first, and I'll go back to what you asked about the different types of businesses. So basic information about the client, first of all, stuff that you would normally gather if you were making a recommendation for life insurance or investments or things like that. For the business, the business type is pretty critical. So whether it's a regular C corporation, and you'll notice C corporation files its own separate tax return, pays its own taxes. So versus any of the other ones, the partnership, the S Corp, or the LLC. And LLCs get more complicated because they can be taxed as partnerships, they can be taxed as S corporations. So that type of information, and what you look for there is what tax form is being filed. So there's an 1120S for S Corps, there's 1065s, which are partnership and other type of returns. K-1s are a certain way. So gathering what tax documents the client has to file is pretty important. But the biggest thing, and those sort of basic facts are fairly standard. Excuse me, it's the sort of feeling fact side of it. What does the business owner want to accomplish? So in that case study, it was finding when the business owner said that he wants to preserve the business for future generations, and he knows his kids aren't ready yet, and they're going to need help running the businesses. That kind of information is when we were presenting this at Every Time, we talked about how keeping those key people there was going to help his kids transition into leadership roles within the business. So what are the client's objectives, and what, if anything, have they done already? So if they have plans in place, we're very happy to review buy-sell agreements, employment contracts, wills, and trusts. Again, we can have our attorneys take a look and offer comments on all of that. The other important thing, and I didn't touch on this because it wasn't part of this type of plan, but oftentimes you'll ask the business owner, what do you think the business is worth? Right. And some of them will have some idea, others won't really have much of an idea. So very importantly, we have a couple of different insurance carrier partners who will do informal business valuations at no cost to the client. So it's not something
that by asking for the tax returns, that's a big one.
Yeah.
And I notice clients will give it to us. That's one big thing I would encourage everybody to do. Ask for the last 2 years of the business tax returns. And remember too, our servers, just so everybody knows, our servers are encrypted. So anytime clients send you that information, tax returns, investment statements, anything they send to us are fully encrypted. So it's not like you need a vault to go upload it to and drop it. They can send it directly to you, fully encrypted. And then that's my big thing. Just get some of those things, tax returns, a basic census, how many employees, how much they're getting paid. You don't need, like, for first round, you don't need Social Security for everyone, what state they live in, just kind of income, age, name, how many hours they're working, what they're getting paid, tax returns. Oh, and what about, Tom, what about like how much money's sitting? If there's money sitting in the C Corp, that's money that can be deployed. So usually if there's 500,000, 2 million just sitting there.
All that. So besides tax returns, so when we're doing, Principal is one of the companies that does business valuations. They want the last 3 years of business financials. So balance sheet, income statements, plus they want at least 2 years of tax returns to take a look at. So they'll take that information. Yeah, that's a great point. Having that, and especially, it seems sometimes like a minor detail, but a lot of times in C Corps, the business owner will loan the corporation money to help keep things going, whatever. Well, that money can be paid back out to them, and it's not taxable. So that can be a source of money. S Corps, there's oftentimes, since the S Corp owner is taxed on all of the profit, whether it's paid out to him or not, oftentimes there's money sitting in S Corps and LLCs that the owner's already been taxed on. So that's a place to find. We're looking to find premium dollars. Here's some money it's already been taxed. You can get it out tax-free.
I've noticed if we ask for those things, it's almost like a little bit of a test to their seriousness or how much they're actually wanting to find a solution or strategy. If you say, yep, go ahead and send that to me, my team and I will analyze it and look for the solutions and opportunities based on what's important to you, and they send that, it's a great litmus test, if you will.
Yeah, if they're willing to commit to that, that's always a positive sign. And we do have, through Crump's website, there is a way to upload documents as well. So that's one way if you need to get stuff to us rather than emailing. That is a way also to get documents to us. It's on the main page of Crump's website that all of you should have access to. Did I answer the first part of your question, Dane?
You did, and I would say that's a big one. That I think it's a good reminder that you just said. LLCs can be taxed multiple different ways. So find out if it's an LLC with an S filing partnership. That's very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's an S Corp or a C Corp separately, we know exactly what those are. Find out what the LLC is taxed at.